Hey guys, Corey Gerald here with Jennifer Thompson,
Hey, everybody.
and we are here for the last presentation for Module 1 of our 9-part medical marketing course. So, good news is, after this, we'll be about a third of the way through. The bad news is, there's still 2/3 to go. But hopefully, you're learning a lot and you've been able to apply some of this info right now into your practice marketing efforts. And if you're starting to apply some of these lessons as we go through them, you should hopefully be seeing some positive results. Actually, go ahead and reach out to us on Twitter at DR Marketing Tips and let us know how it's going so far. We'd love to hear from you guys, and we want to know what's working and what's not and what we can improve on. So anything we can do better out there to help you guys is really appreciated.
Okay, so the last time we talked about the basics of inbound marketing or where patients find you, today we'll be going over the outbound marketing strategies that you can use and you can apply to your practice to get more patients. Now, we said it last week and we're going to say it again. These strategies are designed to help you save time, save money, and save stress. And at the end of this webinar, you'll be able to effectively measure your ROI, return on investment, from advertisements. And we'll share 3 super simple tricks to make your next health fair or event more successful. Now, we're going to run step by step through a lot of this, and we're going to provide some insightful examples along the way. So let's get started. Elements of a successful marketing plan, part 2, outbound marketing strategies. All right, so there's 4 main considerations when it comes to outbound marketing strategies. The first is you need to identify your marketing strategy. Second, you need to understand which tactics will help you achieve your overall marketing goals. Third, you need to provide a reasonable budget, time, and money. Sometimes we don't have a lot of dollars to put into something. And so the physicians think, hey, I'm not spending a lot. But the fact is, if you're spending your entire day working on specific tactics within a marketing plan, you are spending money. They're just not having to dole out extra dollars. So whether it's time or money, you need to budget accordingly. And then finally, you just don't want to forget the little things when it comes to putting your marketing strategy together.
All right, so now we're going to go into choosing your marketing strategy. Now, multi-channel marketing is using many different marketing channels to reach your potential patients. And why should you use a multi-channel strategy? Well, obviously, it's to make it easy for you to reach your potential patients. It's going to make it easy for them to find you, and it's going to be easier for you to find them. So that said, it's about balance. Time is finite. It's a finite resource. We like to think of time as a pie chart. There's only so much time. So where can you devote yours to get the best ROI? That's what you have to figure out. Does it make sense to be in every magazine or at every health fair or on every social media channel? No way. You're going to stretch yourself way too thin doing that.
All right, so outbound marketing mediums and tips for success. So the thing is, outbound marketing is what most of us consider traditional marketing practices. It's what, you know, it's things that we're comfortable with, that we understand. We understand what it's like to create an advertisement and to place an advertisement in the newspaper. It's things like print and radio and television. It's billboards. It's direct mail. It's attending health fairs and putting together a referral marketing program. The thing is, lots of practices cherry pick and select a few mediums to go with. And the secret to success is finding the right mix that provides you with the right amount of frequency and the right amount of reach to get in front of your ideal patient. Okay, so measuring ROI. When planning your marketing or advertising campaign, you have to make sure that you have all the tracking mechanisms in place for measuring your ROI. An ROI, for those of you who are fresh to this course, means return on investment. It's actually when times get tough and budgets get cut, or there are threats to cut the marketing budget, you always want to have your little tracking mechanism in place to show the physicians or the administrator, hey, here's our return on investment. It's not worth cutting these dollars. ROI is just so important. We can't measure it enough. Some measurement tools that you can put in place are dedicated telephone numbers, landing pages on your website, pearls, which are personal URLs often used in direct mail, and even sign up to win promotions. Detailed reports so that you know what works on ads and events and things like that. The fact is, when you send out a direct mail campaign, you want to track every element that comes back to you. One thing we've seen consistently well for list building is creating contests and events at health fairs. You get people to register to win, and then you get an email address. And building a list is the key to reaching more folks. It's not necessarily a sexy way to market at a health fair, getting people to sign up for a list, but just because it's not sexy doesn't mean it doesn't work. And tracking ROI proves to any naysayers out there that this actually does work. All right, so let's talk about advertising just in general. Advertising as an outbound marketing strategy is it's very public, and the fact is you're communicating your brand or your brand message in a very public and intrusive way. You're interrupting whatever it is that potential patient is doing to tell them about yourself. You control and repeat your message in a medium that works for you, and advertising allows you to do that. Whether you're doing it in a local newspaper and you're running an ad every single day, whether you have the budget to get on radio or television, you have complete control over how many times you're going to run that advertisement, when you're going to run it, and when you're going to stop running it. Now, here's a warning for you. Just because you're getting your message in front of potential patients, and probably thousands or tens of thousands of potential patients, it doesn't mean they have to listen to your message. In fact, in today's instant gratification world, for those of us who watch television using a recording device or a DVR, it's very easy just to flip through the advertisements and not listen to them at all. So take that warning to heart. Just because you're putting it out there doesn't mean that they have to absorb it. That's why we want to consider a multi-channel approach for best results.
Now, as far as advertising goes, one of the ways that a lot of us are most comfortable with is print advertising. And a couple of things to remember there. So, one is frequency. Is it going to come out daily, weekly, monthly? And you have to consider those things when you're discussing and negotiating your ad rates. Then you've also got ad types and deadlines and sizes to consider. And, obviously there's a large reach and circulation for these, but are they qualified patients? Is it who you want to be talking to? So a pro tip is to think about your ideal patient and you want to put yourself in front of them. If you're trying to reach moms, maybe you want to be advertising in a little league program. If you're looking for younger adults, maybe that's your ideal patient. Maybe you want to sponsor an extreme sporting event that's, in town. Older folks, maybe it's just a local newspaper. You don't want to waste your time blindly putting your ad in anything that comes across your desk or has a decent circulation and no real return there. So you've got to consider the reason before pulling out your wallet and pulling the trigger. And a design tip, another pro tip here for you, is when you're considering an ad design, go ahead and search for the images yourself rather than paying a designer hours and hours to look for one that you like. And if you don't like it, then you say, no, go look again. And then waiting until they can come back with a couple of examples because you're going to pay for each one of those. So a few sites to consider there are shutterstock.com and fotolia.com. That's fotolia.com. Those are a lot of the same sites that designers use. You can go in there, pick out your photo, and it's really going to save you some time in the long run. All right, and the last thing to consider with print advertising is that sometimes they can be subscription based. So sometimes you might not actually get the full reach and frequency that you think you are. So it's something to ask your advertising rep. So the last thing to consider with print advertising is the multi-channel opportunities that are available. In today's world, they will often provide a couple of other mediums where you can expose your business just because you're advertising in the print edition. You can also maybe advertise on their online website, or you might have a chance to provide some content in addition to the advertisement. So when you're negotiating those rates and things like that, be sure to ask about those because odds are there's some type of added benefit for you to do those things. Moving on, we've got radio advertising. Now, radio, one of the great things about it is it can create intimate contact with your prospects. And a lot of the same principles apply here as they do with print. So the response rate is usually equivalent to television, but it costs a lot less, which is a great benefit of radio. The production cost is less, and you're also able to reach roughly the same demographics and the same listener base. You can also choose your time of airing and the length of the spots. All of those things will affect the rate that you pay. And another awesome thing about radio is that it's immediate. So from creating your script to going into production to going on air, that can all be done within just a few hours. And you cannot do that with print. You cannot do that with television. You cannot do that with really any other medium except for radio or online, which is great.
All right, so let's talk about television and cable advertising. First of all, television is the most costly and it's traditionally the least targeted. It also has an enormous reach, though. It's highly effective with frequency, and the potential reach in television is extremely large. Now, when it comes to cable, you actually have the advantage of picking subscriber areas to target. So when you're talking to your local cable provider, they'll either have the capacity to narrow down a target area by neighborhood. And they do this because they have a contract with a local property owners association or homeowners association or something like that. Or they'll probably have the ability to target your advertisement based on zip codes. And so while television can be very expensive and traditionally speaking, it's not as targeted. When it comes to cable advertising, you actually can get some pretty targeted television airtime, and it's highly effective. And the rates and the viewership, they are changing with technology, and we've talked about it before. I mean, when you're watching TV on your DVR or pulling up on demand, the advertising schedules, reach, and frequency actually have changed as a result of this. And the beauty of television and cable advertising is, again, there's multi-channel opportunities. Most likely, if you're working with a network, whether it's a national network or a regional affiliate or a local affiliate, there are multi-channel opportunities throughout. They'll run a website promotion that they'll promote online. Maybe they'll do an event promotion and tie it together. And then they'll wrap it all around a morning show or an afternoon show. And you and your practice potentially could be the sponsor. So make sure you're asking them for those multi-channel opportunities. And by all means, if you ever run television and cable advertising because of the cost and the investment that goes into it in order to get the frequencies that are going to achieve that return on investment, don't be afraid to ask for things that are outside of the scope of what they're offering. There are many value adds out there, and we'll do a webinar later on about this and about negotiating for media. But plain and simple, television and cable is very expensive, and do not be afraid to ask for more than they're offering from day one.
Next up, we've got outdoor advertising. We've all seen the billboards and the bus signs and all of that great stuff. So, obviously, this medium is great for reinforcing your brand. There is a high repeat exposure and flexibility, especially on the newer digital boards that you see. If you want to change something, you can do that within a couple of hours. But the downside is there's no real audience selection. It's geographically driven, and wherever you put that board, those people that drive by that, they're going to see that. Or if you're on one of those digital boards that I just mentioned, there's a chance that if you're only up there for 10 seconds at a time, that you're going to miss a large part of the drive time traffic as well. So these are highly regulated via local and state authorities. And generally, whoever you're buying your outdoor space from, they'll be able to kind of help guide you through that. A pro tip, though, when you're getting ready to design your outdoor advertising, remember that these people are going to be driving by at anywhere from 40 to 80 miles an hour, essentially. And so you've got a couple of seconds to reach them. So we always say that you want 7 words or less on your outdoor advertisement. 7 is actually kind of a lot, and you want a gripping image if you can get one. And remember that the outdoor advertising, it's not just billboards. It can be anything. It can be vehicle wraps. It can be banners, posters. This also goes for sports fields if you're going to sponsor a local team or something like that. You've also got gas station displays, and you can do truck signs. And there's really a whole world of outdoor advertising out there available for you.
All right, let's talk about event sponsorships because it's more often than not that we're being asked to sponsor some sort of event or participate in a health fair or um, just generally show up and put dollars towards an event itself. So events are really provide a good way to build relationships, whether it's with schools or associations or churches or affinity groups. A lot of times you'll sponsor an event just because a doctor wants you to sponsor an event. Another times you'll sponsor an event because your potential target patient's going to be at that event. And, you know, sometimes you just sponsor an event because it's just the right thing to do with an association or a group within your community. You know, events provide a really good opportunity for creating evergreen content for social media usage. Hey, Corey, you want to tell our listeners what evergreen content is?
Sure. So evergreen content is essentially anything that you can create and publish that doesn't have an expiration date. So, if you are going to create something such as ways to get back to the golf course faster after surgery, well, those ways, they're not really going to change. So if you create that piece of content, then you're good to go. That piece will live on essentially forever.
That's why we call it evergreen. You know, and one thing we tell people all the time is, you know, maybe there's not a good health fair in your area. You know what? There's no roadblock into creating your own event. You can create your own health fair and potentially invite your own referral partners, or you can create your own seminar on concussion safety. You can create your own talk at the local YMCA talking about cancer prevention tips or skin cancer prevention tips. There's no barriers to creating your own event, and sometimes those are the best event sponsorships that are out there. All right, so let's talk about trade shows and health fairs. You know, why would you participate in a trade show or a health fair? Well, there's two reasons really, and that's because there's two types of marketing opportunities. You can either participate in a health fair or a trade show to market to potential patients, or maybe you're going to market to those referral partners because let's face it, there's ebbs and flows when it comes to being at a health fair. And sometimes you participate, but there's not that big of an audience. But the benefit is to go around and get to know those potential referral partners. We tell our clients all the time that, you know, one of the most important things about working a trade show or a health fair is to have a pre and a post participation plan. And what we mean by this is you need to have a game plan for marketing to vendors and marketing to attendees, both before the trade show and after the trade show. Maybe it's getting a list of the attendees ahead of time and letting them know, hey, we're going to be here and we are really looking forward to the opportunity to meeting you. And after the fact, because you're going to have a game plan for capturing data and following up, you send everybody an email, or maybe you pick up the phone and you call them and you tell them, hey, it was great to meet you. If you ever need anything, let us know. The fact is, having that pre and that post participation plan, it's going to help you stand out from the crowd. Now, let me give you three very simple tips for events like trade shows and health fairs that are going to really help you stand up from the crowd. First and foremost, and by the way, these are not rocket science. They're very simple, but they're simple strategies that more often than not people forget about. So first and foremost, make sure you bring something. You want things that you can give away to that potential patient. If you've got a decent sized budget, you know, maybe get some t-shirts made. Maybe you got a little smaller budget, pens go a long way. Maybe your budget's even smaller than that. Stickers work well, especially kids. They like to wear stickers. Maybe you have no budget at all. Maybe you're putting this out of your pocket because your physician doesn't want to spend $1 on this. Well, you know what works well? Candy. Stop at the dollar store, pick up $3 or $4 worth of candy. At least you have something. But the fact is, you gotta bring something to give away. Second tip for being successful at an event is remember that you have to be memorable or it's like you were never there. Remember when we talked about last week about social media development as part of a content strategy? We tell clients all the time, look, if you don't take a photo that we can put on Facebook, the event didn't even happen. So again, be memorable or it's like it didn't happen. Here's the final tip, simplest tip of all, doesn't cost you $1. Fact is, do not bring chairs. Do not sit down during your trade show or health fair. If it's a long one, wear the proper shoes, but don't sit down. Make sure you stay engaged and stay smiling. The fact is, when you put a chair down, people are naturally drawn to sitting. Then they lean back in the chair. Then they inadvertently cross their arms and they're no longer engaging and approachable. You want to be engaging. You want to be approachable. That's how you're going to be memorable. That's why these three simple tips, although they're not rocket science, they're going to help bring it home when it comes to your trade shows and your health fairs.
All right, with that, let's talk a little bit about direct mail. We've all done this, especially when there's, let's say, a new location, or you've added a new doctor, or you're just trying to reach a couple of new patients. These are highly targeted. usually with response rates of 1 to 3%. So although that doesn't seem like a lot, depending on how many you mail out, if you get a certain amount back, then you've done a lot. So generally, we see 20% from the creative. People will actually bring those back. And then 80% from an offer or a call to action, if you include those. Those can be things like bring this in for a free consultation. Let's say if you're in the cosmetic business or something like that, those have great return rates. And with this, you can always segment your list according to your target, which is great. It's a wonderful spend of money, and it also helps you track your return on the investment.
All right, so let me give you an example of direct mail. For several of our clients, we actually put out a newsletter on a regular basis, a printed newsletter. It seems like old fashioned and too traditional for some of those new media folks, but patients like newsletters and they like to see what's going on in the practice, and it's a great way to create that evergreen content and take it from the online to the offline world. But we actually direct mailed those newsletters to referring physicians in the area. It's a great way to keep our referring physicians educated. So maybe you're looking at creating something that you can send to potential referring partners. It's very easy. It's as easy as picking up the phone and calling your local printer or a mail house if you're lucky enough to know the one in your area, and telling them the type of people that you're trying to reach. Maybe it's physicians with current licenses in your respective state. Maybe it is individuals that are of a certain income level or have certain lifestyle choices that they follow. For example, you can probably pull a list of segmented audience based on the types of magazines that they subscribe to. So, as an example, maybe you want to reach men between the ages of 24 and 34, and you think that they're reading Men's Health magazine. You most likely can pull that lifestyle classification with a targeted direct mail list. Um, Usually they're not that expensive, and these are good lists that then you could segment and send your direct mail to.
All right, thanks, Jen. Yeah, that was a lot of good points about direct mail and how you can segment your list. So next, let's talk a little bit about referral marketing. So when you're doing your referral marketing, it's best to bring your doctor along. And I know that's not always possible, but the results that you'll see when you actually bring the doctor with you, I mean, you can double or triple your results in the same amount of time just from having them by your side. Because honestly, that's who they want to see. If you show up with a couple of giveaways and leave behinds and things like that, yeah, I mean, that works, but it's always better to actually have the doc if you can. And as I just mentioned, you should always take something to leave at their office. This can be anything from pens to notepads, maybe even a magnet. We've seen that work really well. Just really anything that you can leave behind so that when they're in need, they think of you. So when you walk into that office, you should never assume that the other medical practice knows who you are. Just because you're down the street, the front desk person there, they may never take that route. They have no idea who you are or what you do. So it's important to always walk in again with a something that you can leave behind, a smile on your face, and act like you want to get to know them. And as you're going through this and as you're developing your physician referral network, it's important to find opportunities to thank your partners. You can do this a couple times through the year. A lot of times it's around the Christmas holiday and Thanksgiving, things like that. But you can find opportunities throughout the year to reach out to them and just say, hey, thanks for everything that you're doing for us.
I'll give you an example of a faux pas. Years ago, I was working with a cardiology group, and we were trying to track why our referrals were down from referring physicians. And after a couple of weeks worth of tracking, um, we determined that we were down on referrals by certain docs as a direct result of leaving somebody off the Christmas card list. So when you go on these referral visits, like Corey said, especially when you take a doctor with you and you walk into that office, be prepared for what you might hear. It was eye opening for us to hear that the entire reason that the referrals had dried up, like an old creek that had just dried up from the drought, was a direct result of being left off the holiday card list. We've had doctors over the years who we're not sure why the referrals just aren't coming in the way they were. And we found out with a different practice that, we had docs that were delivering wine to all their top referrals, and, including the practices that didn't drink. And, those things actually matter. So when you're thinking about ways to thank your partners, make sure that you actually know your partners. And the last thing I'll leave you with on this one for referral marketing, and we actually left it off the bullets, but I think it's relative here, is expect when you're going in to see these physicians, they've got a limited amount of time. They're going to tell you like it is. And a lot of times, what they're going to tell you, you're not going to necessarily enjoy hearing. But from an operational standpoint, sometimes a couple of corrections in the back office procedures can really go a long way when it comes to increasing your overall physician referral marketing. All right, so in office marketing, we will do a separate webinar down the road. Make sure everybody's invited to it, that discusses that the best patient is the one you've already got. We cannot stress this enough, especially if you have a busy practice. Think about it. If you've got, let's say, 5 offices across your geographic area and you have a couple hundred people coming through, or even 100 patients coming through a day, you have potentially 500, 700 patients a day that you can market to. So here's a list of things, potential things that you can cross market. Maybe it's different subspecialties, different physicians, new procedures. Like us on Facebook. You can use posters in your patient room. You can use lobby signage. You can use lobby videos. If you download our ebook on marketing for your medical practice, there's a great chapter in there about lobby videos. Are they really worth it? You can use printed newsletters, kind of like what we talked about with the direct mail. We use printed newsletters with our clients across the board all the time. They're relatively inexpensive, and they are fantastic evergreen content. You can use them at your health fairs. You can use them at trade shows. You can use them at events. You can use them for your referral marketing. And they're just fantastic for cross marketing your practice within your actual lobby or your patient rooms. You can do talks and open houses to your existing patients in your offices, and you really can deliver really excellence in customer service all as part of your in-office marketing, because again, your best patient is the one you've already got.
Yeah, that's a great point. And real quick, I just want to talk about the patient room posters, that first bullet there. So essentially, what that is, let's say that you are an ENT group and you can treat patients from anything from their sinuses to a throat problem. Maybe they're having an ear infection or their child is, something like that. But if they're just there to see you for a sinus issue, maybe they don't know that you have a voice care center. Maybe they don't know that you can treat their 9-year-old. So it's important that when they're sitting in that exam room to have that poster up, because when they're there and they know that you do those things, the odds of them making that next appointment, it just goes through the roof.
All right, so let's talk about our favorite thing, and that is making sure you budget across the board for everything. When you're putting your budget together, sometimes it's hard to remember all the little things, the etc. If you were playing Jeopardy, it'd be the potpourri category. But the fact is, when you're putting together your marketing plan, you have to remember to budget for the things that you're going to distribute or use at or with your marketing efforts. So don't forget about brochures. Don't forget about bio cards for your doctors. Don't forget about business cards. Don't forget about patient feedback cards. And please don't forget about promotional products. Sometimes these are overlooked. We've seen it more often than not when it comes to evaluating a marketing plan. But the fact is, if you don't have the tools that are necessary to market the practice, you can shout it from the rooftops all the time, but people just aren't going to remember what it is that you're there for. So I think the lesson here is just don't forget about the little things when you're putting together your marketing budget. And again, in the show notes, we'll make sure that we again put in the template worksheet for putting together a basic marketing plan, and we'll include all this stuff in there. So even if you don't use them, you can delete them out of the spreadsheet, but it'll be one of those things that's just a reminder that, hey, you know what, I might need to budget for brochures. And if I'm successful, I might need to budget for reprints mid-year.
All right, and with that, let's take it into the quick review. So, number one, you want to identify your marketing strategy. Number two, you want to understand which tactics are going to help you achieve your marketing goals. You're going to want to know which things help you reach your ideal patient. Number three, you want to provide a reasonable budget. That's time and money. And then thinking into the future a little bit, when you need that time and money again, you want to have the budget for that, obviously. And the final thing is don't forget the little things, like Jen mentioned. All right, guys, thanks for listening and following along. We hope you learned a few things about how to run a successful outbound marketing campaign and how to successfully measure your results. So, next up, we're all done with Module 1. We're going to move on to Module 2, which focuses on your patients and how to speak their language and eventually how to fill your doc's schedule up.
So thanks again for hanging out with us, and we really hope that you're able to breathe a little bit easier now. And as always, check back to drmarketingtips.com. That's drmarketingtips.com for our latest blogs and information to help make your marketing just a little bit easier, a little less time consuming, and a whole lot less stressful. And we'll see you next week for the start of Module 2, where we'll be discussing patience.
Bye, guys.